Today, we are diving into the fast-paced world of sports, PR and media.
Athletes have very heightened sensitivities at certain times.
Rate of rejection is very, very high. Funding agencies, they have wanted to control the athletes post an event. A chunk of that money comes from IITians, ex-IITians.
The brands have seen great ROI on driving unique campaigns with athletes.
Journalism is public service. 2 PR question thing I really don't understand. Normally, all BCCI stories are leaks.
That's prevalent.
99% of the stories happen through leaks.
Hello everybody. Today we are diving into the fast-paced world of sports, but through a lens that rarely gets a spotlight: sports, PR and media. And with me are 2 experts who know this space inside out. If you follow Indian sports, you know Rica Roy, a trusted voice in sports journalism with over 3 decades of experience. She is currently the sports editor at NDTV, where she has been reporting since 2005. And joining her is Neha Rastogi, a pioneer in sports PR and founder of WordsWork, which she launched in 2009 after working at Genesis PR and Burson Marsteller. She brings sharp insight into how reputations are built and managed across athletes, teams, and tournaments. And together, we'll explore what happens behind the scenes, how stories are shaped, how PR and media collaborate or clash, and why sports communication is an exciting space for today's professionals. Rica, Neha, great to have you here today.
Lovely that you called us and you are talking sports.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need as much attention to sport as possible.
Yes.
So glad you're doing this.
What drew you to sports PR?
So when I started my career, it was in PR in general, and I chanced upon an opportunity in motorsport actually. And this was completely new territory for me and to many people in India. But what I discovered with that 1-year-odd stint is that it is such an exciting space. The way you need to write, the way you need to communicate, and the stakeholders, in my case it was racers from across the world, was very exciting. So when it came down to starting out on my own, I thought, why not sport? As it unfolded, and now it's been almost 17 years.
That long, huh?
It's been that long. It just kept evolving, and I grew more and more in love with the sector. And to be fair and honest, it's also good luck that the sector itself picked up in India over those years. So it was a bit of both, and I'm really glad I took that step.
And what role have you seen PR shaping the public image of athletes, of sponsors, federations, teams?
So I think, interestingly enough, in the area of sports, PR can play a very critical role because the dynamics are such that the more aware that people are of you as an athlete or of a particular event or tournament, the more viable it gets in terms of building fans, building sponsorships, building viewerships, tune-ins. Everything is dependent on awareness. And that driving factor can be PR. The second aspect is when it comes to talking about sport, I'm not pushing or promoting any product or any brand. It is genuine storytelling. When I'm telling the story of an athlete, it's genuine storytelling, which is why it does tend to become very PR friendly as well. So both aspects put together, for every single, what I realized was whenever I go to clients, it's the PR reports that goes to the sponsors as an ROI.
Okay.
So in that case, there's a very direct link between what deliverable PR can have for sport vis-a-vis how it supports the ecosystem altogether.
And Rica, having professionals like Neha, do you think it has changed things for you, made sportsperson more accessible?
Well, firstly, I would tell you that the phenomenon of sports PR is very new. It's been it's evolved over a period of time. I think I have been having interactions with sports PR people directly and working very closely with sports PR people in last 10 years or so, last decade or so. Well, earlier it used to be very direct access to athletes. Now a lot of events, I would say, are PR driven.
Okay,
because having PR then lends that kind of professionalism to the whole setup. For example, Nandini, if you are an organizer, you would like to have everything organized to the T, including the narrative of the tournament. And that's where the PR comes in. Why do you need PR? You need PR to structure a system, and also to control the narrative.
Yeah. What about sports persons? Like, if I look at the corporate sector, many times journalists and media persons like to have a direct connect rather than going through a PR agency. Does something like that ring for you also?
There are some sports people who like to have a direct connect with the person concerned, and understand where that person is coming from. I have sat down for interviews with sports people who have researched me to the T. They counter question me. I have interviewed such athletes. Then I have interviewed athletes who hardly speak, and who are very shy, who do not know what to talk about. And with them, if they come with a background of PR, in the sense, if they come through a PR person, often it happens that the PR person is able to help them, tutor them to come in front of the camera, to come in front of the media, to be able to articulate themselves either in their own language or in English, whatever their language is. PR helps, really helps in such cases. The timing to get to the athlete is just so little, and the time is of essence. That it helps at times. Definitely, genuinely, it helps having.
I think it's a bit of both. It's both train and organize. And a lot of it is even something as tactile as I have 30 minutes with the athlete after a particular match, and I have maybe 10 journalists. How do we organize this time well collectively?
Right.
So being that bridge, and I understand the journalists will have that direct link with the athlete, and that remains.
Right.
But despite that, just helping them organize, we know what they want. We know what the athlete's mindset is. So bridging that gap, like Rica had said, tends to get important in terms of organizing. And the other layer is training some of them who are not equipped to speak, to be able to better represent themselves. So it's a bit of both.
Also, Nandini, just adding to what Neha said, at times it so happens that, I may have 10 questions for the athlete. But if Neha knows the athlete well, she'll be able to tell me if the athlete will be able to answer all 10 questions, or she needs to give the athlete some input to be able to answer those 10 questions. Or he or she may not just have any idea. So because the time is short, then I need to cut down on my questionnaire to be able to get those, 3 proper answers out of maybe 10 to get my headlines. I can't be asking all 10 questions and not getting a headline. That, beats all the effort.
You spoke about questions. Are you asked to share questions?
Well, a lot of times, yes, I am, but I refuse to, because that is unethical. But with Neha, who doesn't ask for questions, asks for pointers, I always do. Because that way, I think it opens up communication. It helps both sides understand where you're coming from. That, Neha knows that I will not get into a press conference and ask trick questions to any player. And if I'm asking a tough question, it's going to be a tough question and not a trick question. That's also a sort of trust you build with the PR person or with the athlete, and it is very, very important to build that trust over a period of time.
Do you come across that trick questions are thrown? And in fact, for that matter, do you come across situations where they're thrown?
Yeah, it happens very often, and we need to gauge the situation, and we also need to gauge the nature of that particular athlete or spokesperson. So if it is going to come down to potentially, for example, post a loss or post poor performance, the questions will be hard. The appetite of that particular spokesperson, whether they can handle it or not. So we have to be very sensitive to be able to see that, do we want this to be slightly more in a controlled environment, or are they ready to take the punches and then open it up? Open Q&As have very few takers because everyone wants their exclusive bite. So the actual work that happens is after you get off those stages, and after that when you do those one-on-ones, how do we navigate those and make sure that the athlete is in the right space and asks the right questions, not getting badgered by certain people, and protecting them. And you also know that athletes have very heightened sensitivities at certain times, especially
also
playing,
because
right?
you know, sports is a profession where the rate of rejection is very, very high, incredibly high. Do you know there's something called a pinch test in hockey?
No.
They pinch the skin to know the quantity of fat in your body and they'll allow you to train or not. It's that level
That's
of
the
rejection.
level of pressure they're going.
That's the level of pressure, that's the level of rejection. Then in the system, there's a word they use which, you know, rankles me when I hear, it's called weeding out. An athlete, beyond a time when they cannot perform, the system weeds him or her out. So the pressure is immense.
When you guide sports persons, what would be, say, one or two do's and don'ts that you tell them when they're dealing with media?
Yeah. What we're telling them is be proud of your story and be willing to tell it because it'll inspire someone else. So the one thing that gets through to them is, can I inspire other young boys and girls to take up sport as a career? If yes, yes, I'm willing to do it. Will this help me as an athlete to become more successful and be sustainable in this ecosystem? Then it makes sense for me to do this. The one thing we'll tell them not to do is to get provoked. You can't be ticked off or tipped off by one question which you feel in your perception is triggering you.
But that must be coming by practice, otherwise
It
it's
comes with
very
practice.
difficult. Yeah.
Also, it comes with a bit of natural ability. Some athletes have a natural flair to be good with media and to tell those long answers. But unfortunately, if I have monosyllable answers of yes and no to every question that a journalist throws at me, where will he or she get her story then? So to be able to expand upon your experiences, to be proud of it, a lot of the athletes are actually very shy to talk about their stories, especially stories of struggle. But the fact that they can own it and the fact that yes, they can talk about it only because it will inspire others is when they really put themselves out there. And we also tell them to remain authentic. If you are not comfortable with English, for example, which a lot of our athletes are not,
it doesn't matter.
it's perfectly fine. But if he or she tries to then translate themselves to English on camera and is struggling with it, that's worse.
Get answers
makes
like
it even
the Mamul Haq.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, contextualizing things for them, putting them in simulated situations, and also most importantly, pushing them to enjoy. To be able to enjoy the experience of telling their stories and have the patience to be able to tell it. And why is it important?
The PR part might be probably happening, I would imagine, definitely for the top tier athletes. What about the ones who are still not known, who are the emerging?
That's always the struggle, because the thing is that it is a very important story to tell. Sports in the grassroots, sports in the school and college level, the kind of competitions that we need to bridge that gap is critical, but it may not always make it to news. But there is a lot of opportunity in storytelling over there. You're finding future champions, you're finding future talent over here. You're also talking about mass impact. So here is where we do a little more of the human storytelling rather than talk about scores and points, because that may not be as consequential in the news ecosystem. But we like to pick out those stories which actually mean something, either collectively or of any particular individual. So I think that's the way to go about it. Yes, it's difficult, but we are regularly being given such opportunities. So for example, we work with Laureus Sports Foundation, which is a global foundation which uses sports as a medium for social change. Now, standalone, if I just talk about that, it gets very difficult to find some context. But we actually, if we pick up impact-based projects, and they did this amazing project with a local NGO for girls in football with Yuva. So something like that then becomes an impact story for us to be able to tell. But yes, the lens there is more long-form storytelling, human interest features than news, which is typically left to the elite athletes and competitions.
What do you look for in a PR pitch?
Story.
Relevance.
Well, the story has to be something that has to be fetching, not just for me but for my viewers also. A story that's going to live in their memories.
And what
I am not very hot on a viral story. A lot of people these days will say, "Oh, I look for a story that'll give me I look for a pitch that's going to give me a viral story." No. I look for a story that is going to remain in the minds of people for a long, long time. That's the kind of story. See, at the end of the day, why are we doing this? Why sports journalism, or why journalism at all? It is public service. Journalism is public service.
Okay, elaborate on that.
So, broadcasting or journalism, what we do, we disseminate information to the masses. We are the eyes and ears of the masses. We are the fourth estate. Okay, and our work is to disseminate information, and hence it is public service. So my mother is a doctor. She says that, you know, be responsible in your job because you are doing as much of public service as I am. You know, and hence what am I feeding the public? I am feeding the public the most compelling story of the day. It has to be compelling.
Agreed.
Okay, so that's what I look for. I also look for a headline.
In corporate sector, we say that what you're discussing inside the room, even before you step out, it's out there. I'm sure it must be happening in sports also. Any example where something like this really created a nuisance?
That's like norm.
Normally, you know, all BCCI stories are leaks. So we report them almost 3-4 days in advance. Then on the 4th or the 5th day, the press release comes. What do you call it? A leak only. So all teams come out in that way, that, you know, for example, you know, Shubman Gill, that Jasprit Bumrah was not going to captain India and Shubman Gill was going to be the next captain. I reported on the day Rohit Sharma resigned. It was almost 3 weeks to when captaincy was announced, because we knew it would be Shubman Gill. So
that's prevalent.
99% of the stories happen through leaks. So
in fact, in sports specifically, leaks is becoming a bit of an overlap with what one would call exclusives in the corporate PR world. Leaks, exclusives, how are we going to do this? Who do we give the first impact story to? There is one journalist who only functions this way, saying, hey, I'm definitely going to put this out there if you give it to me the day before you put it out. Now this is fine. It's okay as long as it makes sense for that particular story.
And as long as it's not harming reputation.
Absolutely. No, I'm completely talking from a positive space. An announcement to be made, someone to be talked about in a very positive way. It's never been seen in the negative space. Yes, there are a lot of PR disasters and crisis situations in sport, but I don't think leaks are.
So one of the stories that I did, so I knew at least a couple of days before that that match in Bombay was going to be the last match for Lalit Modi as the commissioner of IPL, the chairman of IPL. I did that story. Lalit called me up and said, how can you do this? How can you do this? How do you know? I said, see, I got this story. He gave me a lot of grief over that. But eventually it turned out to be his last match.
What do you think really differentiates the Indian sports ecosystem from the global one?
Globally, sport is part of culture. Even if I'm going for a college game in US, the stadiums are packed. Over here, even if I'm playing with national elite athletes, the stadiums are empty. I'm finding more audiences in regional markets than in national big metros like Delhi and Mumbai. So if I want a packed stadium for hockey, I'm going to go to Odisha. I will not hold that match in a Bombay or a Delhi. So the whole appetite for sport in our society is still very, very low. The importance of sport in our day-to-day lives is not yet recognized, as is the case globally.
Any one emerging trend you see in sports PR?
So in sports PR, I think this whole blurred line between digital and traditional is catching on quickly here as well. So I think the speed of bite-sized content and the ability to do more visual content has picked up its pace. So the tools and the way we do PR is getting to be very different. Also, we're growing into the influencer ecosystem as well.
Any athlete who comes to your mind who's inspired people with their stories, inspired other sports persons?
I'm very fond of Rani Rampal. She was...
it was just in my head when she said it just...
So,
instantly I picked up on that
I've
name.
seen her over the last maybe 10 plus years, and within those 10 years she became the captain of the national women's hockey team. They had this glorious moment at the Olympics where they beat Australia, which was truly a cinematic moment for all of us. And where she comes from and where she's gotten to and what she's doing now. She's the daughter of a rickshaw puller. And the first thing that she could do with her career in hockey was to build a permanent house for her family. And she comes from Haryana. So from there, and to the fact that she initially wasn't too confident in speaking, to today her sitting in most elite organizations and gatherings and talking like this to you with complete confidence, now running her own training facilities, now being able to coach younger women to get into the sport and to empower the women of her own state by telling her story. I think all of that put together has been so inspiring, and then you realize that okay, these are the stories that need to be told, and it has such a social impact, let alone within the sporting ecosystem.
There was one press conference I was of Mohammed Siraj. This was in Australia after he had taken a 5-wicket haul. And it was a very simple question asked to Siraj that, you know, do you think this is finally the answer you give to people who have not reposed faith in you? It was not a trick question. It was a very simple question. Then he says that it is a reply to all the haters.
Ouch.
I did not tell him anything. After the press conference, I asked him, what do you think is the meaning of the word hate? He has a very NBA sort of an understanding of the word hate. Then I decoded it for him. You know, so as journalists, as PR people, we also need to tell them that no one is hating you.
Yeah.
It's a very unforgivable world. We all have to work, thrive in this world. We all have to do in our own ways, but no one is hating anyone. That sort of a trust has to be given to the players. You know, the first story we did on Gukesh was when he was 9 years old. Because that was the time when he won his first international tournament. So when there are, you know, breakout performances like this, even when they are so young, I'm not saying that for every performance, every great performance we have done a story, but there have been, you know, performances that have been picked up by the media. And the other day when he became the world champion, we were able to take out that footage of a 9-year-old Gukesh. He was as shy as he is now. So, like there's a young boy called Arit Kapil who's from Delhi. He drew with Magnus Carlsen. So I had him in the studio. He's 9 years old. So we love to tell their stories. You know, in a non-war scenario, what is it that you tell stories of you know, of your heroes that gets you those eyeballs? It is sports.
You spoke of PR disaster. Give me an example.
Oh God, there are so many. There was this one case where the facilities at a particular camp for the players of a sport were not up to mark, and there was a journalist present there who covered it. And that led to a disaster on the whole management of that particular sport and how the athletes' conditions are. So when they came to me with that crisis, the obvious thing to do was, what are you going to do about it? Is there an immediate action that you're going to take? And I think that is in the crisis manual of any PR person, that A, own up to what went wrong, and B, do something to fix it. So they actually did that. They went down, they overnight or over the next 2 days upgraded the facility, and then we took down certain media to say, okay, this was reported, people saw it, they acted upon it. Nobody is denying that that was the situation. So I think end to end, if you have that kind of a turnaround story which is genuine, basis action, it's something I can work with. And if it goes down a fairly unethical line, then we very politely say we cannot do much about this. Let it die down its own natural death. So when there is a crisis where you know no positive narrative can come out, there's nothing they can say that goes right, we tell them give it a few weeks. Leave it alone. It has to have its own cycle, start to finish.
When the whole conflict of interest case was happening in Supreme Court after 2 IPL franchises were caught in spot fixing, Chennai Super Kings and Rajasthan Royals, N. Srinivasan was helming Chennai Super Kings, and N. Srinivasan was being represented by one very senior Supreme Court lawyer on a given day when, you know, the judge T.S. Thakur in that case questioned, you know, you are directly linked to the fixing episode. what do you have to say? Because he's a son-in-law. So then Srinivasan told his lawyer to say that he is not related to me because he is my wife's daughter's husband. So Mr. Thakur, the judge, got so angry. He said, "Are you casting aspersions on your wife now? Please get out of the courtroom." And Srinivasan eventually was disqualified. You know what the story, I mean, the story played out. And Mr. Thakur got really, really angry that day when he said that he is my wife's daughter's husband, has got nothing to do with me.
Right.
Rika, when you find there is another additional layer of sponsors, how does that impact your engagement with athletes?
I will give you examples, specific examples of situations when I wouldn't really say sponsors, but funding agencies. I again don't want to name them. They have wanted to control the athletes post an event, and it has happened to one of our very famous wrestlers, whose narrative was controlled, whose interactions and narrative was controlled by the agency,
Who's funding
agency other than Government of India during the Paris Olympic Games, and it was nothing to do with PR again, because they invested a chunk of money in her when there was a big story around her. I think everyone now knows who I'm talking about, but I'm still not going to name her. The narrative was controlled. Every tweet, every press release, every quote of her was written by that organization. As problematic as it was, we had to deal with it. Neha knows what I'm talking about.
Completely. But I mean, just on the other side of
and
things,
there are provisions in the sports bill for this.
Okay.
We spoke to the sports minister about this post the Paris Olympic Games. How another elite athlete, and this elite athlete was completely controlled by not by the federation, not by IOA, but by the respective funding organizations, and that made that cut a very sorry figure of the government and the country that they were representing.
there are two levels of funding in sport, right? One is there is an agency level funding, obviously government funding. And when it comes to sponsors, it's a very different story. So with sponsors, it's more visual ROI or campaign related work that we do. So for example, if Gukesh went on a Myntra ad, typically that is a sponsor-led piece, right? Now, how do they see their ROI is purely basis the branding that athlete chooses to wear, or it is basis the campaign that they get to do with that athlete with the time that they get, the way you work with celebrities.
Right.
So there, the PR is more driven by the campaign itself or by the looks that we can create for that brand with the athlete in sporting moments or non-sporting moments. So it's a very different way of looking at things, where it is both visual as well as driven by campaign. And some of the brands have seen great ROI on driving unique campaigns with athletes. And you'll see a big surge of this during times like IPL or during times like Olympics, where athletes become center stage for many brands and their campaigns vis-a-vis the usual choices.
Yeah.
So there is another layer of sponsors come funders in Indian sports ecosystem. So these organizations, can I name the organizations? Yeah. Like Olympic Gold Quest, like Go Sports, and so on and so forth. What they do is, so for example, if you're an Olympic athlete, you need 1 crore rupees, I'm giving you a ballpark, to win a medal at the Olympic Games. The government is giving you say 70 lakh of the 1 crore rupees. Where do you get the 30 lakh from? The 30 lakh could include paying your physiotherapist, your podiatrist, your chiropractor, your travel, so on and so forth. So you have to have that 30 lakh rupees to ultimately be able to win your medal. So that extra funding is given by these sort of organizations who are a part of the Indian ecosystem today. you can call them player managers or funders, or I don't know what term
It's
they...
basically professional sports management, where they get to represent the athletes and they get to also then crowdfund for those athletes to bridge the gap, because the entire expense of being able to start from the right kind of training to move them into international competitions is very expensive. So this co-opting between how much the government can support and how much private entities can support has been the norm for most Olympians, at least.
Is this where the corporates also come in?
I'll tell you, I'll give you an insider information. A chunk of that money comes from IITians, ex-IITians.
Okay.
Who silently want to support us.
Who silently want to support the Indian sports ecosystem.
Okay, that's commendable.
Yeah, because my parents are a part of the ecosystem and I know a chunk of that money, a lot of the money comes from the IITians in India and across the globe.
Okay.
So, corporate involvement in sport can be in many ways. So one is, of course, simply branding, where it's a marketing transaction and you get your logo, you get your branding, you get a campaign. The second is CSR. Sports is directly creating CSR opportunities, and a lot of these corporates are finding sports CSR to be an interesting
Just
space
elaborate
to be
on
in.
that. What do you mean?
So for example, if a corporate house decides that my CSR, or at least part of my CSR, needs to be devoted towards sports and development.
Okay.
So I am actually driving CSR funding towards sport as well.
Got it.
There are certain norms around that, but a lot of corporates are doing it. For example, Reliance Foundation, or what Tata is doing in many places in terms of the foundations that they're running for sport, right? So I think that is another area of corporate involvement. And of course, like what Rica is saying in terms of crowdfunding, building infrastructure, any way in which that they can support the development of sport in the country is great. What's interesting about being involved in sport for any corporate is that it is great when it comes to a very positive space to be in for that corporate. Also, it is not as quiet as other CSR that one may do. Sport is very relatable and it's very visual. So if I'm doing CSR in a village for a school, vis-a-vis if I'm doing CSR by supporting the funding of the national hockey team, for example, that's a little more visual for them to be able to put themselves out there. So it works in advantage of sport, where a lot of the CSR funding can come to them and collectively be used for the development of sport, right from grassroots up to the elite level.
Yes,
So a lot of the para athletes today do get CSR funding from various corporates, and it's mainly to have their equipment done and their braces redone. All of this, comes under CSR activity, and a lot of them, including Sheetal Devi, she has been benefited by CSR from corporates.
What irks you? One or two. I'm sure there may be many, but maybe the top one or two things.
With her, I have a symbiotic relationship with her, but at times PR also means controlling of narrative, which can really irk a journalist. There are PR people who will come and tell you, we are only going to give you time to ask 4 questions and no more, and give us those 4 questions. So that's my pet peeve. I will give you an actual situation when at the end of the Paris Olympic Games, after an athlete won a medal, he had to spend a lot of time in the anti-doping wing, and when he came out it was almost 3:30 a.m. and we were standing on the streets of Paris waiting for the athlete. When he comes out, the PR person of the federation says, "Oh, hurry up, the athlete is hungry, I have to take him away." So the journalist got really angry and said that, if you are the PR person walking out with him, why is the athlete hungry? Why wasn't any food given to them? And what about us? We are also standing here hungry. So anyway, so that happened, and then the athlete comes out saying, "Oh, the PR person has told me that we will do joint bites," and the media got really angry. We were 11 of us there, and I told the athlete that, look, it is a very important point in the moment of Indian sports. It's a historic moment. If 11 of us who have travelled all the way from India to Paris cannot get 5 minutes of you tonight, then thank you very much. Namaste. We can leave, and you can leave as well. many congratulations. At that point, the athlete said, no, I don't mean to offend any of you guys. Let's start. We will do all the interviews. All the interviews was done. The PR person standing there fretting. He was very angry with us. He doesn't still speak to me because I initiated that. You know, a classic thing that happened with Neeraj Chopra the other day when I went to interview him. Radhika Yadav's murder had happened, and so I asked him the PR question that was needed to be asked, and then Radhika Yadav, of course, became the headline because he spoke on Radhika Yadav, and that was the story of the day. So, you know, while we headlined that, we carried the entire interview. The PR person called and said, "It seems like you've made him a spokesperson for the murder story." I said, well, but you know, that's the news of the day and he's talking about it, and he's talking about it very empathetically. Why not? If an athlete is talking about the ecosystem, and I haven't knocked off your part also, that PR plug that you wanted me to ask, I asked, and that's a part of the interview. That's not been knocked off. But I'm not going to headline that. You have to understand what is news. And then he said that Neeraj Chopra is very angry with you. I said, I don't believe you.
I'm actually a little surprised to hear of a PR person showing angst like this, because PR, I mean, that's a basic thing. You need to understand relationship building.
So I'll tell you what happens is that, and it's typical to entertainment as well, that's the closest example. The minute you start representing a celebrity, you tend to take a lot of ownership which may or may not be yours. So not getting struck by fame or famous people, or not letting that rub off on your attitude is the maturity you need to have. And you have to have it. I will never be that fangirl when I'm on the job, ever. I may be a huge fangirl otherwise, and I'll do that at my time and space, but when I'm on the job, I won't let that rub off on my professionalism, no matter who the athlete is that one is representing.
Tell me, today,
you know, on the flip side, I see a lot of journalists getting to the field. Once they're on the field, they start clicking pictures with the athletes. But you know, I think that I am there to do my story. I'm there to get my interview done first. Once the interview is done, I have some time with the athlete, I will click a picture for sure. But that is not the thing I'm there for. That's not my priority to go down on the turf to click pictures with the athlete. Then how am I different from a fan?
And you know, this is really important to also get on the right side of the athletes. The minute you see you're fawning over them or you're just over enamored, it's very different from the fact that they see you as a professional who is there to support them, guide them, and help them. So having that discipline, I think, is important, and of course on the field
also. The other thing I'll tell you, Nandini, so I have worked with the Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid generation of athletes. That's the first generation of athletes I have worked with very closely. I have worked with the MS Dhoni generation of athletes, and then the Virat Kohli and now Shubman Gill generation. Yes, but I don't work very closely with them anymore, though I still continue to cover Indian cricket. I see, you know, the reflection of hypersensitivity of general masses in the athletes as well now. Earlier, you know, for things like, you know, something that we said or we wrote, Dravid would pick up the call, Sachin would pick up the call and say, why did you do this? Why did you write this? Why did you say this? But they would never behave in a way that made you feel, that made you feel little, or that made you feel unwanted in the ecosystem.
You're increasingly seeing that happen.
So a narrative again has been pushed to this younger generation. What is happening inside is not known to the people outside. So there is an inner sanctum and an outer sanctum today. So the inner sanctum is fed on this narrative, and they're young girls and boys. I don't blame them. They're young girls and boys who are fed on the narrative that, you know, you are not liked by people on the outside.
This is compounding their pressures.
Of course.
And Neha knows who I'm talking about, the people who kind of, and these are not the PR people again. These are the people like their managers, like some of the coaches, some of the senior commentators who are around them, who are constantly telling them, oh, you know what is happening in the inside. They don't know on the outside. They have a completely different picture of you. They are trying to paint you in a villainous manner. This never happened in the past, and I have been a witness of that change, because I have seen how players would pick up the call on you. I'll tell you a story again from the Paris Olympic Games. The day after Manu Bhaker won her second medal at the Olympic Games, a very senior official in the Indian Olympic Association said that Manu and Srijesh will be the flag bearers. Told me that flag bearers for the closing ceremony. I ran that report. 6 hours later, a person from her office calls me and says, can you please take down that story? We still haven't decided if Srijesh is going to be there. I said, but the story has run for 6 hours now. It's there on Twitter, it's there on Instagram, it's there on... No, please take it down, please take it down, please take it down. No, it's going to be a disaster, it's going to be a disaster.
So what happens in these situations is that...
So I'll tell you, I told my office, take it down. They said, we can edit it, we can't take it down completely. Then we kind of geo-blocked the story, and then what happened, 3 days later they went back to their decision of Manu and Srijesh being the flag bearers.
Yeah, correct.
So my office said, what is this flip-flop? You gave the story, you asked us to block the story, and then now you come back with the same story.
This happens, and I think what I tend to tell people when they want to change something is, let's be factually correct. If there is a factual mistake, the story can be edited in the online space. Print, of course, you can do nothing. So we can get that edit done. The other thing is, how do we eventually change the news cycle? Whatever is there is there. In the online space, whatever is there is there. Do you want to change narrative? Then speak in that language and change it eventually. So that story is on top.
Your advice to young PR professionals for considering sports PR?
I think it's the one side of PR where each day is a different story. It is not a desk job. It is something that you need to be passionate about, and it is exciting every single day. The amount of variety of work that you get to do, being able to be on field where your workspace is a stadium, where your workspace is a press box, and to work with incredible PR professionals from that field as well as media. It's a very different set of media too. I think it's a great learning experience, and I really want more and more boys and girls to join sports PR.
Any one or two skills they need to have to be successful in this profession?
I think you need to be able to think on your feet a lot, because just as the nature of sport, things move really fast. You do not have the luxury to sit for days and hours working on fancy plans and documents. You have to turn things around very quickly. So I think being able to think on your feet, where I, for example, have to turn around a press release in 20 minutes from after the match is over. So that kind of skill is required. Also the ability to have a lot of empathy with the different stakeholders that you'll be dealing with.
Your advice to youngsters who could consider this, sports journalism as a profession?
I think similar to what Neha said, that sports journalism is not a desk job. It is a 24/7, 7-day job. No weekends off. Because all these sports events across the world culminate over Saturday, Sunday. All of your life, all Saturday and Sunday will be spending covering sports, and you can only do it if you love sports as much. Also, be open to changing yourself with the demands of the day, because just knowing or doing one function today doesn't help. A lot of the youngsters come to me wanting only to be a sports anchor. But I encourage everyone to be a 360-degree professional, and that means that you have to be able to anchor, you have to be able to shoot, edit, voice, script, deliver your job end to end. And only when you know your job end to end is when you will appreciate the job. Even you will appreciate your camera person, you will appreciate your sound recordist, you will appreciate the others. and do a better delivery of the job. And I encourage every professional to know that. The last thing is that be open to playing a test match and not T20, which means look at a long-term career and not don't do this if you are just coming here to make it a platform for the next thing, because a lot of them tend to do it out of college. Oh, I want to go to a fancy corporate career because and before doing that, let me explore sports journalism. I would say, you waste your time in doing the process. In the process, you're either in the game or not in it.
Rapid fire now, and your quick response to some of them. Most fulfilling part of your work?
Having a positive impact in an athlete's life.
Being able to spend all the days of my life with some biggest heroes.
And what's the toughest?
Managing various stakeholders to get through to one common solution. Multiple layers to deal with that.
Toughest at times is to crack stories. It's not always easy to get stories.
What is your favorite sport to promote?
Cricket is the most loved sport of the nation, which is why I would say 80% of our coverage is around cricket. But if I would love to promote a sport, that would be hockey.
My very biased answer is hockey as well, by the way.
Okay.
I think it's a wonderful sport. It's so intrinsic to our country and
it's visually very appealing.
It's got everything and it deserves more.
One athlete you feel who's got a fantastic media presence?
As of now, I would say Neeraj only because of his authenticity and because obviously of how he's handled his success. I think the fact, and you can clearly see when it gets to the athlete's head and when it doesn't. So I think him standalone is a very great example of how an athlete should be.
For me, it's Sania Mirza.
One sports PR myth you like to bust?
No, I probably don't have.
Something in sports journalism that you feel is wrongly understood?
That it's all glamorous.
Yeah, that it's all glamorous.
Yeah.
I think PR myth too, it's not only about going on ground and having that VIP accreditation to all access, which a lot of the young boys and girls feel so proud to have.
Yeah.
To earn that accreditation, there's a lot of hard work that you need to do.
Yeah.
And then you earn that access that you get.
Is there more pressure before the game or after?
I think it's before, during and after across
all.
the board, because all three phases have very different roles to play for us. Before, it's all about building the hype, building the awareness. During is to do maximum justice to what you're seeing on ground, and after is to make sure that ripple effect continues. So all three have their own roles to play.
And finally, one word for sports PR that we are discussing.
See, I feel there is a huge opportunity to serve the sports sector by doing sports PR the right way. And that means making sure all stakeholders come together, they all speak a common language, and it all goes towards the welfare of not just athletes but people at large, so that we can actually have that little bit of impact on building a culture for sport. If that is the end goal, then I'm very happy to contribute towards it.
I think make the athletes look authentic, and athletes and administrators, I would say, look authentic and good.
Rica, Neha, thanks for taking us behind the headlines and into the heart of how sports stories are shaped.
Absolute pleasure for getting us on the couch.
Thanks so much for having us.
Well, from media strategy to managing reputations under pressure, today's conversation showed just how layered and meaningful sports PR really is. And so for everyone watching, if you are passionate about sports or communications, this space is full of opportunity, energy, and impact. Thanks for tuning in.